Good evening, everyone. Okay, hi. I'm the technical manager for the Aluminium Federation. Whoops, if this will work. Right. My contact details are there. Please feel free. I hope everyone's got my business card. If you haven't, please shout. I'm going to talk about aluminium, but tonight what I want to do is to give you a flavour of what's going on, why aluminium is becoming popular, its growth, and a very brief introduction into its applications. So I'm going to start off with aluminium. It's atomic weight number 13. You're going to see this a dozen times, but it's a light metal. It's a strategic metal, and in society, effectively, we've got 5 strategic metals. Steel is obviously dominant. Titanium is overlooked, but titanium is a strategic metal because it is used extensively in surgery, because bone grows into titanium. So you might think in terms of titanium in aerospace and things like that, but where it really is gaining ground is in medical. Copper, bullets, brass. Magnesium is the lightest metal of them all, and you find in applications in things like car roofs and displacing carbon fibre. But the star that I'm going to talk about is aluminium. Okay. And the point that I'm going to pick out very, very quickly, effectively aluminium is a third of steel always. It's a third of the density of steel, a third of the mechanical strength of steel, a third of the melting point of steel. Melting point 660, very low temperature. Very high conductivity. Very roughly, the conductivity of aluminium is about half that of copper in terms of electricity and in terms of thermal conductivity. These days, aluminium alloys are being developed to match, if you talk in terms of a car, in terms of a chassis, in terms of architectural, there are now aluminium grades that match steel strength for strength. The high tensile steels obviously leave aluminium behind, but for the vast majority of the uses of aluminium, about 85% of what you can do with steel, you can now do with aluminium. Third of the weight. In terms of electrical conductivity, it's displacing copper. Very roughly, a third of the weight of copper, but when you do it on a weight for weight basis, because of its high conductivity, on a weight for weight basis, it's 200% the conductivity of copper. So in a Jag, you're going to take 12 kilograms of weight out by going from copper aluminium to aluminium wiring. The 11 kV and 100,000 volt cables are swapping to aluminium. Frequently, they put a steel high tensile wire down the middle of them. But by doing that, you can spread out your pylons. Huge invest in that. Cookware, again, on a weight for weight basis on thermal conductivity, 200% that of copper. You don't see many copper pots and pans. If you've been watching The Great Bake Off, each chef is issued with a complete identical set of pots and pans. They're handmade in Birmingham. The patterns are about 100 years old. They use a 120-year-old press, and they turn them on a lathe which is 80 years old. One of the properties of aluminium which is gaining a huge amount of interest is, unlike other metals, it actually gets stronger as it gets colder. No brittle ductile transition. But the important thing is its ductility remains. Even steel, even metals that don't have brittle ductile transitions start to lose ductility at low temperatures. Aluminium retains its ductility at low temperatures. Huge applications in cryogenics and in outer space for that reason. Wrong one. It's non-magnetic. Big application, non-magnetic. Does conduct electricity, so through eddy currents you can induce magnetism, but in its natural state it's not magnetic. It's non-sparking. One of the beauties of aluminium is it instantly forms an oxide coat on its surface. When a spark's generated, effectively what you're doing is burning the metal to an oxide. But aluminium instantly forms an oxide, so it's non-sparking. It doesn't burn either. High reflectivity. Even anodized, even discoloured aluminium's got very high reflectivity. And the installation I'm going to give, this is the walkie-talkie building in London. It's a concave and it's a focused mirror. They realised they were going to have problems with the glass because this is facing south at midday. So they aluminised the glass. Your Lamborghini standing about here at midday melts. And they've succeeded in melting at least one Range Rover and one Lamborghini before they realised they had a problem. The reflectivity of aluminium. It's soundproof. Unlike steel, it doesn't ring. So it doesn't ring, so it absorbs sound. It's got huge sound absorbing things. If you go on the continent, down the motorways, they're all aluminium sound barriers. It's gathering momentum in the UK. Oops. Extreme longevity. Eros, 1893, standing on the pedestal. No protection whatsoever. It's actually 16 castings riveted together. It's been taken down twice in its history and cleaned. It's as good as new. If aluminium is subjected to regular rain and not constantly damp, it's got incredible corrosion resistant properties. Get it right. So let's see why, I've outlined the properties. Demand for aluminium is going balmy. And I'm going to throw some numbers at you to show what's going on. And the thing to look at is the countries. Bear in mind that aluminium weighs a third of the weight of steel. So steel production is about 1 billion tonnes a year. Primary aluminium, this is aluminium out of ground into first use. Year 2000, about 25 million tonnes were produced. 2017, 63 million tonnes. They argue over the exact number, but it's got a 6 in front of it. Third of the weight of steel. Look at China and look at the Gulf states. Aluminium, you have to refine it or smelt it using electrolysis. You need huge amounts of electricity. You need readily available electrical power. China has got the same problem as the rest of the world. When Coronation Street finishes in the middle of winter, everyone switches a kettle on. You've got to have power stations to supply it. They are commissioning coal-fired power stations at the rate of 2.5 a week. Forget what they claim to be doing green. There is nothing better for a smelter than for aluminium because it uses the other 22 hours of power. In the Gulf states, they are obviously it's oil production. The methane, they take out the oil wells, compress it, bring it over here. But there are lots of oil wells that have mixed gases, including acetylene. You can't compress acetylene because it explodes. They traditionally used to flare it off. Now they burn it off to generate electricity. Perfect supply of aluminium. So if you do a plot between growth of aluminium and the growth of electricity, it's the same slope. If we look at, so we sort of spoke where we were here, but this is the forward demand for aluminium out to 2022. 90 million tonnes. That's orders placed today for aluminium. This is JLR insurance supply chain. This is the aerospace insurance supply chain. 90 million tonnes is going to be required now in 2022. Where's its uses? Two massive uses of aluminium. The one is construction, buildings, and if you looked across there, you would see virtually every high-rise building out there is clad in aluminium. So the weatherproofing, the facades are all aluminium. The other great one is transport. So today, transport and architecture are the two big demands for aluminium. But the one that's coming up very rapidly in the background is packaging. With the scare of plastics, people are swapping from plastics to aluminium foil for packaging. And that can be recycled. Traditionally, aluminium went into buildings. They have a design life of 75 years. Which means that 50% of all aluminium ever dug out the ground is still in its first use. Automotive demand, rapidly coming out. The Tesla, there are 2 steel parts in a Tesla. The rest is aluminium. The highest safety rating car in the world. Jag, Audi, the F-150, sports utility vehicle in the States, the largest selling automotive car in the world. They swapped to aluminium and took 150 kilograms out of it. It's in America, they don't have boy racers. If you're an affluent middle class sort of teenager, you've got to have one of these. Biggest selling car in the world. Trucks. Using extrusions and extruded panels, make it shorter, longer, change the shape without fundamentally changing the design down to aluminium. The first niche lightweight vehicle in the world. 1899, Carl Benz. The first aluminium-bodied vehicle, sports car in the world. Aluminium in vehicles is increasing. Very steady growth. The net effect of that is the End of Vehicle Life Directive says that 85% of all raw materials have to be recycled back into their own original state. So when you take out rubber and some of the chemicals and the stuff, basically they mean steel and aluminium. Automotive is driving recycling. A car's designed for 100,000 miles, 15-year life. 100,000 miles is revving in the red. 120 miles an hour and stop starts. But that's the life of a car. So aluminium service lives, this is sort of building it. 75 years for a building, design life. Aircraft, 30 years. So the aircraft of the sort of late 70s, which are extensively aluminium, are now being scrapped and dismantled. Power transmission cables, 35 years. They are going up as we speak. Cars, 15 years. Consumer white goods. Your microwave, your washer, your fridge are made out of aluminium. 7-year life. Pop cans, 1 year. Pop cans are actually a recycling groundbreaker. About 70% of all pop cans in the UK are recycled. now. The UK government about 12 months announced a scheme to recycle 59% of all pop cans. And foils, wrapping foils. And this is an area that is going to grow more and more and more with the problems with plastics. The beauty of aluminium is it's an infinite resource. You can recycle it readily.